All right, so today we'll be starting off with properties of metals, and then in the next week's lecture, we'll be doing the extraction of metals and the whole revision as well. So, starting off, the properties of metals. Number one, we know that all metals have high melting and boiling point because what's the reason? There are many strong metallic bonds in a giant metallic structure, so large amounts of heat energy are actually needed to overcome those forces and break these bonds. Number two, they are good, are very good conductors of electricity and heat. And what is the reason for that? Because of the free electrons present. The reason for them being good conductors is the free electrons that are available to move and carry the charge. When a metal is used in an electrical circuit, electrons entering one end of the metal cause a delocalized electron to displace itself from the other end. अब सारे जो free electrons होते हैं, this one is going to displace the next electron. This would carry the charge. The next electron इस तरह आपके पास current flow कर जाता है within the metal. Number three, all metals are also malleable and ductile. Why? Because there are layers of positive ions that can easily slide over one another and take up different position. This does not disrupt the metallic bonding as the valence electrons do not belong to any particular metal atom, so they can move with the layers of positive ions. Maintaining the electrostatic forces, the metallic bonds are thus not broken, and as a result, metallic bonds are strong but flexible. Therefore, they can be hammered into different shapes without breaking. So if you look at the structure of a metal, you can see a lot of positive ions which are surrounded by a sea of electron. ये हमारे पास क्या है? It is a sea of electrons that is surrounding all of these positive metallic ions. Now what is going to happen? The current is going to enter this part. अब ये वाला is going to transfer the charge to this one will transfer the charge to this electron. So this is how a whole current is flowed due to the presence of free electrons. Any metal is a very good conductor. Moreover, electrons are delocalized, or you can also say that the electrons are free because they are able to free and to move around throughout the whole structure. They can move anywhere they want and they can flow. And positively charged metal ions, these metal ions can be anyone. If you're talking about sodium ions, तो उसका structure क्या होगा? We have sodium plus one ion surrounded by different sea of electrons. If we talk about the general chemical properties of metals, the chemistry of metals is studied by analyzing their reactions with water, dilute acid, and oxygen. Based on these reactions, a reactivity series of metals can be produced. Some metals react with water, either warm or cold, or with steam as well. Metals that react with cold water form metal hydroxides and hydrogen gas. For example, if you react calcium with water, it's going to produce calcium hydroxide. If I react magnesium with water as well, वो भी क्या बनाएगा? It is also going to form magnesium hydroxide. ठीक है, and why would it be MgOH या MgOH2 क्यों होगा? Can you tell me the reason? Why did I write MgOH only? Why did I write MgOH2?
Because calcium requires two.
How do I know that? Okay, अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं what is aluminium plus water, what would be the product?
AlOH3.
Why 3? Where did 3 come from?
Because aluminium needs to
Aluminium is in
lose
group number 3 ना,
steam.
तो उसके ऊपर +3 चार्ज है. OH has a charge of -1, तो हमने क्रॉस किए हैं. Got it?
Yeah.
Simple. Metals that react with steam form metal oxide and hydrogen gas. अगर आप metal को water के साथ react करोगे, it would form a metal oxide and hydrogen. Most metals react with dilute acids as well, such as HCl. And when acids and metal react, the hydrogen atom in the acid is replaced by the metal atom to produce a salt and hydrogen gas. For example, iron. यहाँ पे क्या है? When we react a metal with an acid, आपके पास एक product बनेगा, एक salt बनेगा. It would form a salt. Now Fe is +2, Cl is -1, तो आपके पास formula क्या बनेगा? FeCl2 and hydrogen. Unreactive metals such as gold and copper do not react with acid, but some reactive metals such as the alkali metals Alkali metals कौन से होते हैं? Alkali metals are the group 1 metals that react with oxygen. Copper and iron can also react with oxygen, although much more slowly. When metals react with oxygen, a metal oxide is formed, for example, copper. और अगर ऑक्सीजन के साथ रिएक्ट करेंगे, they are going to form oxides. Can you tell me what is an alloy?
Uh, or mixtures of metal.
Mixtures of metals, exactly. An alloy is a mixture of two or more metal or a metal and a non-metal. Alloys often have properties that can be very different to the metals they contain. For example, they can have more strength, hardness, resistant to corrosion, or extreme temperatures as well. Alloys contain atoms of different sizes, which distorts the normally regular arrangement of atoms in metals. This makes it more difficult for the layers to slide over each other, so alloys are usually much harder than the pure metal. So here you can see these are all the elements, okay? And this is another metal element, okay?
Yeah.
So it's basically a mixture of metals. We have different metal atoms mixed with some other metal atoms. अब उनमें से कुछ big metal atoms होंगे और कुछ different size के metal atoms होंगे. When they form a structure, that is not a regular structure. ये structure is very different from the regular metal lattice structure. ये बहुत distorted सा होता है. And because of that function, these cannot slide over each other. ये slide नहीं कर सकते because they are all cranky. They cannot slide over each other, so they are not malleable and ductile. So if we talk about some common alloys and their uses, brass is an alloy of copper and zinc, and it is much stronger than either metal. Alloys of iron with tungsten are extremely hard and resistant to high temperatures. Alloys of iron mixed with chromium or nickel are also resistant to corrosion, and aluminium is mixed with copper, manganese, and silicon for aircraft body production, as the alloy is stronger but still has a low density. Now, if we talk about the reactivity series, the chemistry of the metals is studied by analyzing the reactions with water, dilute acid, and oxygen. Based on these reactions, a reactivity series of metals is produced. Do you remember the reactivity series? Can you tell me? Tell me the whole series.
Uh, potassium,
Then
sodium, lithium, calcium, magnesium, aluminum, zinc,
PB.
iron,
These series can be
hydrogen,
used to place a
copper.
group of metals in order of the reactivity based on their observations of the reaction with water, acid, and oxygen. Now, if we talk about the reactions with water, the first three, potassium, sodium, and calcium, they are going to react. ठीक है, अब potassium would be the most violent reaction and calcium will react less strongly. एसिड के साथ देखें, these first four जो हैं ये बहुत violently react कर रहे हैं, but zinc and iron थोड़े से weak हो जाएंगे. And if we talk about oxygen, they all react very quickly and readily, and जैसे जैसे आप नीचे जाओगे their reactivity obviously is decreasing. So the most reactive ones is potassium या sodium या ये ज़्यादा हो जाएंगे. Carbon and the reactivity series mnemonic अगर हम याद करें, carbon is an important element and has its own place on the reactivity series. Its use in the extraction of metals from their oxides is discussed in the section, but a more complete reactivity series with an accompanying mnemonic is there to help you. So that mnemonic is please send lions, cats, monkeys and cute zebras into hot countries signed Gordon. या फिर आप ये भी यूज कर सकते please send camels, monkeys, lions and zebras in large, heavy cages soon. Make sure they're pet locked. तो आप कोई भी इनमें से यूज कर सकते हो. That will help you make the whole reactivity series. Look at this. ठीक है, I'll prefer कि आप ये यूज करो. Please send lions, cats, monkeys and cute zebras into hot countries signed Gordon. So the top ones would be the most reactive ones, and the bottom one would be the least reactive ones. And if we talk about the reaction with aqueous ions and oxides, the reactivity of metals increases going up the reactivity series. This means that a more reactive metal can displace a less reactive metal from its oxide by heating. For example, copper 2 oxide को देखें. It is possible to reduce copper 2 oxide by heating it with magnesium as magnesium is above copper. तो आप इसको reduce इधर से कर सकते हो, and magnesium is more reactive so it will displace copper. अब copper oxide है, copper oxide की मैं reduction करूंगा, reduction is loss of oxygen. So you can see copper oxide had oxygen and now it has lost its oxygen. Why? Magnesium was a more reactive metal. It displaced copper and came in place of copper. So if we talk about iron 3 oxide and aluminium का, इसकी products क्या हो जाएंगे? Iron and aluminium oxide, because aluminium is more reactive than iron, तो वो उसको displace करके खुद oxygen ले लेता है. Iron gives its oxygen to aluminium because aluminium is more reactive. Sodium oxide and magnesium का reaction नहीं होगा. Why? Because magnesium cannot displace sodium from its oxide. Because sodium is already more reactive than magnesium. Magnesium cannot displace it. So no reaction as the sodium is above magnesium. Silver oxide and copper की बात करें तो the products would be silver and copper, because copper, yes, copper can displace silver oxide. इसी तरह calcium can displace zinc because calcium is above, and यहाँ पे silver, no, silver cannot displace lead oxide because lead is more reactive already. So any metal will displace another metal that is below it in the reactivity series from a solution of one of its salts. This is because more reactive metals lose electrons and form ions more readily than the less reactive metals, making them a better reducing agent. The less reactive metal is a better electron acceptor than the more reactive metal, thus a less reactive metal is reduced. For example, zinc and copper sulfate को देखें. Zinc is more reactive, copper is less reactive. ठीक है, तो will zinc displace this copper from its sulfate? Yes, it can. Zinc is going to come in place of copper. तो देखो, first the sulfate was reactive with copper, now the sulfate is reactive with zinc, and copper has finally been displaced. So these are the same reaction that we discussed before on the basis of reactivity. These reactions are going to take place and they are going to displace each other. So you can have a look at this as well. Now let's talk about the thermal decomposition reactions. Some compounds decompose or break down when they are heated to sufficiently high temperatures. These reactions are called the thermal decomposition reactions. For example, अगर हम कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट को डिकम्पोज करें, it is going to decompose into a calcium oxide and a carbon dioxide. This is only in case of carbonates. Thermal decomposition of metal hydroxides. Metal hydroxides को decompose करें तो आपके पास प्रोडक्ट क्या आएंगे? Metal oxide and water. Just a second. Group 2 metal hydroxides decompose similarly, but the group 1 hydroxides do not decompose due to they have a higher thermal stability. So lesser the thermal stability, faster would be the rate of decomposition reaction. If you look at the thermal decomposition of metal carbonates, most of the metal carbonates and hydrogen carbonates undergo thermal decomposition. For example, the metal oxide and carbon dioxide are the products formed. For example, magnesium carbonate thermally decomposes as follows. You can see over here कि magnesium carbonate किस में decompose हो रहा है? Oxide and a carbon dioxide. Group 1 carbonates, again apart from lithium carbonate, do not decompose when heated. क्यों? क्योंकि ग्रुप 1 कार्बोनेट्स बहुत ज्यादा थर्मली स्टेबल होते हैं. ठीक है, एंड द मोर रिएक्टिव द मेटल, मोर डिफिकल्ट इट इज टू एक्चुअली डीकम्पोज इट्स कार्बोनेट, क्योंकि वो बहुत ज्यादा स्टेबल हो चुका होता है. इट इज एक्चुअली वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू ब्रेक डाउन द कार्बोनेट. आर यू गेटिंग इट?
Yeah.
Copper carbonate, for example, is relatively easy to thermally decompose, but K2CO3 does not decompose क्योंकि K2CO3 is very, very reactive and thermally stable. What happens if we thermally decompose metal nitrates? All of the metal nitrates would decompose when they heated, but they would decompose into a metal nitrite and oxygen. Nitrate क्या होता है? NO3 नाइट्राइट क्या होता है? NO2 and oxygen. Most other metal nitrates form the corresponding metal oxide, nitrogen dioxide and oxygen when heated. For example, copper nitrate. अब अगर कॉपर नाइट्रेट है, कुछ क्या करेंगे, दे वुड फॉर्म थ्री प्रोडक्ट्स, कॉपर ऑक्साइड, ठीक है, NO2 एंड O2। तो आपको थ्री प्रोडक्ट्स बनते हैं इसके अंदर, सो यू हैव टू रिमेंबर द प्रोडक्ट्स ताकि उसको हम इजीली बैलेंस भी कर सकें। Aluminium and its apparent lack of reactivity. Aluminium is a curious metal in terms of its reactivity. It is placed on the very high on the reactivity series, but it doesn't react with water or acids. This is because the surface of aluminium metals react with oxygen और वो एक प्रोटेक्टिव कोटिंग कर देती है जिसको हम एलुमिना भी कहते हैं। एल्यूमिनियम ऑक्साइड की जो लेयर होती है, इट इज़ वेरी मच यूज टू प्रिवेंट रस्टिंग, क्योंकि वो एक एल्यूमिनियम ऑक्साइड की एलुमिना लेयर बना देती है। इट बिकम्स अनरिएक्टिव एंड रेजिस्टेंट टू corrosion. And that is all for the properties of metals.